And for everybody here, my name is Todd Erickson. You'll see a lot more of me today and tomorrow. On today's agenda, we've got a variety of speakers, and our first one that we have today is going to be Dawson Botsford from HackCU, which we were very glad that you could make it, because my last email said that you were stuck in an airport in California. So, and with BitCU, so we'll start with that. And tomorrow, just to make sure everybody knows, tonight we do have the movie at 8 p.m. Live on Bitcoin. That'll be our last event for the day. And we break at 6 p.m. for dinner. Tomorrow, we got coffee and networking at 8:15, and we have the opening ceremony with the mayor of Charlotte. Will be here at 9 a.m. And opening commencement starts at 8:50. So, if you can wait up for that, that would be great. Oh, good. We got Dan and Faruk. Come on up. Let me introduce the people that made all this possible. Thank you, Dan and Faruk. There you go, guys. We got one. We got laptops hooked up. I was just getting ready to introduce.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Faruk. I'm the co-founder of Cryptolina along with Dan Spuller. Grateful to have all of you here. We decided on Charlotte for a lot of obvious reasons. We had a lot of momentum going in from our last event in Raleigh last year. We think there's a lot of interesting, innovative discussions taking place. We wanted to be a part of it, and Charlotte seemed to be the right location for us to do that. Again, amazing speakers. We're grateful to have all of them with us. We have some great sponsors and vendors that are going to be out there. Enjoy, mingle, let us know if we can make your experience any better. And by all means, grab us and pull us aside if you have anything you want to share with us. But enjoy yourselves. We have a lot of good things ahead of us. So, enjoy and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll get started then with our, from Dawson Botsford of HackCU. We'll get you hooked up here. The topic is bringing Bitcoin to the third world. So, outstanding.
For the future presenters, remember that setup right there.
Yes, thank you.
So you get full screen. If you need help after, come to me. Excellent. Well, hey everyone, my name is Dawson Botsford. I'm a current engineer at Shape Security, which is a startup in Mountain View. Never mind about the come to me. Apparently, you and I can't get it right. If it messes up, just holler at me. So like I said, I'm a current engineer at Shape Security, and I'm here to tell you about how you and I are going to bring Bitcoin to the third world. But what would a Bitcoin talk be if I didn't start off with a fiat horror story? So this past week, I decided that I wanted to get a new laptop off Craigslist. Chatted with a woman. She said we'd be meeting in San Francisco, which for you guys would be hard out here, of course, but for me that was only an hour away. So I got set up and ready to go the next day, packed up everything I needed, went to the ATM to go get the money, and I got rejected. The security policy on my account wouldn't let me get the money I needed. The traditional, check your email, approve the transaction. Check my email, there's nothing there. Check my text, there's nothing there. Call the 1-800 number. No one answers, of course. But it's just one of those situations where you really wish Bitcoin were more of a popular thing. And so what I ended up doing that night is I grabbed a different credit card, charged it through my bank, Bank of America, at an ATM much like this one, except for it did not have a screening passer in it. And eventually I got the money I needed, but I got charged extra on my credit card, and it wasn't even through the bank that I went to. So went home pretty disappointed that night, sat down on my couch. The second I sit down, I get the verification email asking if I want to approve the original transaction. Of course I didn't want to, it was too late at that point. But I got the money I needed, and eventually I just went to sleep. sweet dreams about Bitcoin that night. So here's a funny little comic I like to describe myself, and hopefully you guys embody a little bit of it. So let's get into talking about the real meat of this though. As many of you know, Bitcoin has a way of revolutionizing the way we exchange money. So on the top is how it's done currently in a lot of places. But the thing is, in third world countries, we're not able to trust that system. In the United States, we have a lot of jurisdictions that most of us agree with that keep these parties honest. So these Venmo, Square Cash, Western Union, all of those, they're mostly honest, and they're kept honest by the government. But in other places, we can't trust that, and that's of course where Bitcoin comes in. So on the bottom is a clear demonstration, of course, exactly how all of blockchain works. But I want to just show that to be an example of really how clear and open the blockchain is. It really does replace the entire banks trusting each other. And that's the beauty of it. This publicly available information is what we're about to talk about and tap into with this tool. So the thing about Bitcoin though, is that golden window, that black box, that golden window right there, is entirely dependent upon the internet. Same way SpongeBob and Squidward are dependent upon each other right here. They can't split. But in order to hit the late majority, in order to hit the primary consumers of Bitcoin, to bank the unbanked, to all the sweet fuzzy things that we've heard, we need to be able to do and adapt Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies so that they're available to people that don't have full access to the internet the way we do. And so the way that I thought a good idea to tackle that would be is to make things available via SMS. For those of you who don't know, SMS stands for Short Messaging Service. And it's just a fancy way to say texts, pretty much. So what this tool is it's a little taste of the solution to this map. So this map right here, think of the white and red as good, the black and blue as bad. A lot like a bruise, black and blue is bad. What the black and blue is it's a very low or non-existent amount of web access. And so you can't even see really the outline of Africa on here. You can barely see parts of Russia. And these are really the areas that we want to help spread to. These are the areas we want to help bank. So I hope I've convinced you a little bit of the need for it now. Here, just to jump into it, is a demonstration of the tool. So this tool is called CryptoVal, like cryptocurrency value, just shortened out. And here's a short GIF of what it does. On the left is just a screencast from my cell phone. I just copy pasted an address into this. I'm setting it to the bot that I'm here to tell you guys all about. What it's doing right now in the back end is it's checking the blockchain. And it just got the balance of that wallet and the amount of pending Bitcoin in that wallet. And so this is just going to loop over and over. You guys can watch it over and over. But it's live for you to try out right now. And this is the number you would text to. So if you're interested, you can jot it down now. It'll also be at the very end of the slides. But what I want to help urge you guys to try is, maybe not just try it once, of course, but to think about this idea of reaching out to a new audience that's different than what we normally think about being in the first world. So this tool right now, I've said Bitcoin plenty, but it actually has more than just support for Bitcoin. So you can use Litecoin addresses as well. You can use Dogecoin addresses as well. And this whole keyword last, that's an idea I just got started on that I'd love to see people work on more. But what that is it allows you to send the word last. And it will the bot will actually text you back the last transaction you did, the last Bitcoin address you did. Because copy and pasting or typing out your address over and over is incredibly impractical, of course. And so that's currently implemented and it works. For those of you who don't know Litecoin well, here is a short summary of it. And then, of course, those of you who don't know Dogecoin very well, here's a quick summary of that. I made this one myself, actually. It even has CryptoVal in it, so a little bit of subliminal messaging for you guys. So here is a big old map of what this is really doing. And what I'm going to do with you guys right now, you might not have seen this in a while or ever, is I'm actually going to throw code at you. And for those of you who aren't developers, which I actually assume we don't have too many. Actually, could you raise your hand if you're a developer? Excellent. Yeah, got about 25%. So for those of you who are not developers, this is a very easy introduction. And I just want to show you how quick and easy a tool like this is. So what happens is, when you send a number to that phone number, that Twilio address, Twilio is a company that helps make phone communication much easier to do programmatically especially. There's something there waiting, and it's waiting for you to send something. Anyone can text to it, and when it gets a number, it follows those arrows. It goes to that other box down there that says Heroku and SoChain. Those are two companies that help, SoChain helps make the blockchain easier to query. And Heroku just helps make things publicly available on the internet. So you can publicly make a server available, and it completes that whole order. The database on the very end is just one quick thing to do the last keyword. That's just to check and see the last time that you sent something in. And that's really all this tool is. It's very minimalistic, and it's the ideas that are really important here that I want to capture. So let's see if I can help inspire you guys. This is the very first API. API stands for Accessible Programming Interface. And what the API here does is that it allows you to query the blockchain. Just these lines right here. You can put in not just a Bitcoin address, but Litecoin and Dogecoin as well, like I said. And with this ugly 6 lines, which I think is kind of clean, but some of you may think it's ugly, these 6 lines are all it takes to get information about that address. So this is the first leg of those boxes I just showed you guys. And once you get that information, what you have to do is display it. So these hideous lines are what takes it to display it. And really all of that makes this. And this little XML, which is a protocol of, XML is a policy we can get into later, but this message right here is all it takes to text back to your phone. Then you make it all publicly available with this one line. And there's a bit more to it in the code that you guys can see publicly available because it's open source. But the idea is that this isn't such a scary world out there. Clearly you guys are willing to try it out because you're here at this conference. But I urge you to try out new parts of Bitcoin. Maybe not the programming portion, but just any part of it really. I'm here to understand a lot more about the basics of the way, not even basics I guess, the in-depth analysis of the way the blockchain works, but you guys could be here for different reasons. I urge you to pursue that over this conference. So the thing about Bitcoin is that, or about us as people is, we tend to focus on the first world problems. For me, my first world problem was trying to get money out of my bank, which in the end I was still able to do, and it only took an extra 30 minutes. But there's much bigger problems out there. There's governments that are subpar, they have infrastructure issues, they have that whole trust issue I was showing in that first slide with the golden box. And I want to do a very short case study. Do any of you guys know what country this is? I heard guesses. I haven't heard it yet though. This is Zimbabwe. And Zimbabwe has had a massive issue with inflation. They suffer from hyperinflation heavily in the early 2000s. And this is a picture of all the currency that was printed between, or the denominations that were printed between 1998 and 2008. And so at the very end, as you can tell, it started to get out of hand. It's such a large number, it takes a long time to say $250 million to buy a candy bar, to buy whatever it is. And it got worse and worse. The prices were doubling of things in 25 hours, every 25 hours. Imagine if your startup had that kind of growth. That's 2x growth every 25 hours. Like you can imagine this as you have some cash, you light your cash on fire, and your goal is to spend it before it's all burned. And that's the kind of thing that it was like for several weeks there. It almost became a joke of how out of hand it was getting. And this was actually the largest they printed while they were there, $100 trillion. So the $100 trillion bill is a landmark. It's actually sold on eBay now for a lot more than what it was ever worth because of how interesting of a bill it is. At the very end, before Zimbabwe decided to shift their currency to other fiat currencies, they were offering $5 US for every 175 quadrillion Zimbabwe dollars. At that point, that's definitely the worst hyperinflation ever in history. And I want to influence and bring up the idea that maybe they could have used something besides United States dollars to ground them. What if we weren't around? What if the United States dollar wasn't as stable as it is? Bitcoin could have been an option, but Bitcoin could not be an option with its current infrastructure. They don't have a high amount of web access there. They do have a high amount of SMS availability there, though. They have a lot of texting ability. In fact, for every 6 mobile phones, they have 1 PC. So it's not anymore that these third world countries don't have access to electricity or have access to SMS or phones. They do have access to those these days, but they still don't have access to the web. And so this tool could have been used, or this idea really could have been run with in areas like Zimbabwe. That when they switched to USD, that was in 2009, so the ship has long sailed. But it's still a large market. Companies are trying to do this. And as you saw from that map of how much black there was that was not lit up, there's a large amount of people in this world who SMS availability of Bitcoin could really assist, and SMS availability of all cryptocurrencies. But from what I've seen so far, I do not claim this as absolute fact. My tool is the only open source approach to this. So I want to help describe to you how important open source is when it comes to the development of applications, when it comes to the development of anything. After all, Bitcoin itself is open sourced. And so what open source is it means that the code, everything behind it, is publicly available. It doesn't necessarily mean you can take it and make money off it. That depends on the licensing. But if it's open source, it means I'm going to share it. You can look at it, you can study it, you can play with it and change it even, and you can make it better. And there's this community online for open source because it speeds development, because it makes collaboration easier, it makes collaboration less expensive, and it brings in a community, which makes more dedicated projects, it makes better projects. Now, what do all 4 of these have in common?
Open source.
Yes, exactly, they're open source. I'm glad you guys are picking up on what I'm talking about. So, as I mentioned, Bitcoin itself is open source. Bottom left, that's Linux. So the entire Linux operating system is open source. Mozilla Firefox and WordPress. Now, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but WordPress makes up 19% of the internet. 19% of the internet's websites were made with WordPress. So open source is not a joke. It's a very viable thing. There are companies who make money off of it. WordPress is a company who makes money. So is Mozilla, especially. And that's just to prove that open source doesn't necessarily mean I'm just going to do this touchy-feely thing and help out everyone. That is an awesome byproduct of it most times. But it can also be a viable business plan. So here's what Bitcoin looks like on the internet, open sourced. You can scroll through and click on these files, these folders, read about them, see how it works, get confused by how it works, stand in awe of how it works, and see and track so many different things. Now, as I mentioned a few of the benefits earlier, open source has so many benefits. It's good for security. So that comes about because so many people are looking at it, so many people are evaluating it and clicking through it, as I was just saying. People like me, especially, I actually do security for Shape. People like me love to find problems. I don't even always want to fix something. Sometimes I just want to break something. And that's perfectly okay with open source. There's the fixers, there's the breakers, there's all kinds of different roles that you can take, and you don't have to do the same thing every time. You can always try something new, something exciting for each project. Like with Bitcoin, for instance, I'm not going to really be helping implement the core functionality, that's for sure. But I might help squash some of those bugs. Sometimes people file bug reports just because they don't understand how to use it. It might not even be a bug. And so open source can help filter that out, especially when the people who make the original open source project are hotshots. They have a lot of important things to do. They have other businesses, they have other ideas and projects. They can't always maintain it themselves, but the quality of the project stays high when it's open sourced. And the last thing is, like I was saying, with touchy-feely, it actually is a pretty good PR move usually too. People like the idea of open source. It's fun and good to know what's happening with your information. When you guys send me a text or send that number a text, you know what's going to happen. You can look online at what's going to happen. It's not going anywhere it's not supposed to. And that idea is awesome. That idea is one of the founding things of Bitcoin that makes it so popular, is that it's clear. It's like a glass door. You can see into it, and you can see how it works. And that's something we should really embrace and continue with, because I love that idea. I'm sure you guys do too. So here is a quick graph of a common thing that they talk about in startups. This is the growth of a product. This is the growth of an idea. And what I want to tell you guys about is how exciting it is where you're at on this. In my opinion, this is definitely not statistical. I think we are all initiators. I don't even know if all of us are innovators because of how small that percentage is. And Bitcoin has not even, cryptocurrencies in general, have not even hit their peak. A lot of people outside of this room believe that it has. All they know is the cost, the net worth that Bitcoin used to be, and that doesn't even start to tell the story. So I want to influence you guys to try and see what you can do and access these other parts. The early adopters especially. Sometimes when this illustration is drawn, there's actually a gap between early adopters and early majority right there. And what that gap is that's the crippling gap. With startups especially, that's when you make or break. That's when you take off or you kind of stumble and sometimes fizzle and die at that point. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're close to that point in that we have a long runway to go because there are so many people that will continue getting interested in the idea. Especially young people like me will continue to be raised into it and get interested in it. It'll just make more and more sense as the years go. As people have said before, the same way the internet used to be. The internet used to be such a confusing concept, and now it's generally understood. So here's what the project looks like. CryptoVal is the name of it, like I said before. It's on GitHub, just like Bitcoin is, just like Ethereum is, just like a lot of other cryptocurrencies. Feel free to look at it and see what's happening. Maybe just check it out. There are future plans for this. What I want to continue to do is to push into these ideas. Currently, you cannot send or get any type of notification on receiving Bitcoin with it. That the sending part especially makes me wary because of course that requires private key handling in some way. And that's a part where it'd be really interesting to have people help with open source. There are ways where that does not have to go in the clear. There are ways that can be more secure, and there definitely are ways that does not make Bitcoin centralized with this tool. So that's the idea I want to continue to run with, is that we need to keep Bitcoin decentralized as well, clearly, for it to retain all of its good attributes. There are several other milestones listed out on the repository on GitHub, and you guys can feel free to look at it. So thank you for listening today, everyone. There is the URL if you want to go to the website. There is the number if you want to text it again. That's 123-456-44668. Feel free to write that down. You can come get me afterwards. This is my website handle on just about every website because I have such a unique name. And at this point, I can take questions, I think. Can I take questions? Is that cool? Excellent. I can take questions at this point about the tool, about what I'm up to, what I do at Shape, anything like that you guys are interested in, or what I do with HackCU. That's actually a Cleveland hackathon I made in Boulder, Colorado. Yeah?
That's from base, I'm from a breaking point. So there was another company trying to do SMS, Bitcoin SMS, 37 coins,
Yeah.
and they just announced that they're shutting down based on two reasons. One, they found it very hard to actually bring this to the third world, and there was infrastructure, and then they had a funding issue.
Sure.
So what's your opinion on that, and how are you guys different?
Yeah.
Are you learning from their mistakes? How are you guys handling that announcement?
Of course. So I actually just saw that announcement this morning. So awesome question. Very putting me on my feet, which is not a problem at all. With 37 coins, I was really interested in the idea, clearly. It's actually very similar to this, to CryptoVal. And the defining factor is that CryptoVal is not a startup or a business. It's an idea that I want to help just push. I don't have any funding. I don't need any funding. There's no business plan behind it. And it's not planning on needing that. I don't need money to make this idea and this value continue. I just love the idea and the value behind reaching out to more people. And they are tackling a very difficult problem. And not to say this is not the same problem, but I'm not hoping necessarily that this tool will be able to, the way 37 coins work, for those of you who did not know, is that they were planning on having the cell phone number be the public key. In a way, they would mask the actual Bitcoin public key. So every cell phone that was with their service had a public key tied to it, which basically means you have one private key tied to your cell phone. And it creates I wouldn't even know how to scale it any better. They had an awesome attack vector from what I saw. And so I guess my point is that this is just an open source idea initiative. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool.
Just quite, so the Twilio
Sure.
Twilio.
Yeah.
So how is that, I mean, obviously, if there's no startup or no money, how, is that service free or
Yeah.
how is that being?
So let me go to all the services actually, it'll be a lot easier to point out. So Twilio is not a free service, but it's very inexpensive. So currently, this is, like I was saying, 123 is the start of the phone number. It's just deployed in the US right now, this phone number. It's not actually implemented in the third world, at this point at least. And the fees are very low. They're less than a penny per text. And so I'm just paying for it for fun right now. It's nothing serious out of my pocket at this point. So, and the rest of these are all free services. That's the excellent thing about it.
So right now, is that just a way to validate a balance at Bitcoin?
The Twilio part or the rest?
No, because I texted it, so you
Yeah.
get a balance if you text to that number, or
Mhm.
the balance on the Bitcoin address if you texted it, right?
Yeah, that's currently the full functionality of this. Yep. And I'm in the midst of actually creating a better binding for not having to text in the same thing again. So having like a favorites. So like your wallet number one, the thing you use most often. That type of functionality. Does that answer?
Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else? Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about open source and Bitcoin itself being open source. Your project is open source, I presume, but you're not raising funding. There's no sort of protection for these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about open source? What are your thoughts on how an open source project, which is simply an idea, Bitcoin doesn't have a company behind it, can be launched and can successfully defend itself against, for example, legal threats that might have resulted in 37 coins shutting down, or regulatory pressures, putting pressure on those ideas?
Yeah, that's a great question. Regulatory issues with open source especially is a very loaded topic. I don't know if you're aware of Aaron Schwartz and the story with him, but in a way that related to open source as well, at least some of his history. And there's the same way Bitcoin, I think at least, a similar way to the way Bitcoin is treated by governments, by our government specifically, I won't generalize too much, is a similar way that open source is. So it's not quite understood and it's not quite been around long enough to be established. For myself and for a lot of people, if you have a very serious idea and you have a very interesting or new, patentable, that type of idea, open source is not the best idea at first. That's debatable, of course. But there are licenses with open source to protect it. Either way, though, you are releasing it. So there are several different types of open source licenses that you can look up online. One being MIT. MIT is extremely popular. There's the WTF something license, which is do whatever you want with it. And those are very different in itself. So open source does not just mean I'm going to give you everything. You can do whatever you want with it. MIT, for instance, you can't take it, put it in your product, make money off it without ever changing it, and like those ideas. And so that's protected by the license, but difficult to enforce. Definitely difficult to enforce. Anyone else have a question?
Have you given any thought to privacy implications of, like, even just querying balances over SMS? Like, that's unclear, right? Like, you should probably assume that they're both the phone provider and possibly any government that has jurisdiction over it can access all of that.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to that idea much because it hasn't grown very much. This tool, like I said, is deployed solely here. That's totally something to worry about with scaling, especially being in security, I understand that, but oftentimes, sadly, security and awareness of security is thrown to the wayside at the very beginning of something. And I think that's a dangerous idea to play with. But my hope was for this not to be used in those situations quite yet, at least. It's not hardened enough to be able to offer the promise of every single thing you do here is decentralized. I'm not storing anything private, but every single thing you do here, there's no guarantee that your phone number is not associated with what you just sent in from your phone number. Twilio, for instance, there's no way to break that binding. When you send a number to Twilio, Twilio knows that it came from that number. And so, that's a good point. It's definitely a good point to consider with it scaling too, if it were to become a business, or whether it to just be scaling, of course.
Maybe we need to set up some sort of tour for SMS.
Yeah, I love that idea. I would love to look into it with you, actually. I'm a big fan of Toy. So. SMS is pretty low security from what I'm aware of too. I know that's why the secure private key portion of it, I did not even consider throwing in because, or at least initially, if it's in the clear, that's a horrible security idea.
SMS is as easily forged as email is.
There you go. So. Okay. Well, if that's it, then thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.